Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast, where we focus on how authors found success, looking at strategies that have taken them to the top of the bestseller charts, as well as what they've learned from their mistakes. Because being an indie author is more than knowing the latest marketing trend. It's about being innovative and creative and learning from your mistakes.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sara Rosette.
And I'm Jami Albright. And this week on the show, we're going to answer your questions.
Yes, we're going to start off talking about newsletters, what we send, and then we'll go on to answer other burning questions from the Facebook group.
Yeah. And, your mileage may vary because some of this you may already know, and some think you might get a nugget of something. But, they're like with everything in indie publishing, there are a million ways to do it, and we're not saying the way we do it is the exact right way, but it's an idea. So
just giving some thoughts and ideas and pick and choose what works for you. So
exactly. What's been going on with you, Sara?
Well, this week I turned in my book to the editor last Sunday. Yay! So this week I've kind of taken the week off from creative writing type things. I've done admin stuff. I went through all my emails. Well, mostly all of them, which they kind of piled up for that last week. So I did that and doing some stuff around the house, and it's been kind of nice. Not a lot going on. Listen to some podcasts. That's about it.
That's great.
Pretty slow, kind of slow week. What about you?
Well, more of the same, just trying to finish this book and hit another snag, but I think I've worked it out, and so just really nothing much with me. I've just been doing that, and I did get my second COVID vaccine last Thursday. So
that's right. Yeah.
After next Thursday, I will be
fully vaccinated.
Fully vaccinated. Yeah, pretty excited about that. Minimal side effects. I mean, I felt kind of tired and a little, little blah. Didn't feel good, though. Great for a few hours, but after that, I was fine.
Yeah, compared to some people, that's really good. And
my husband had the same reaction. So
that's good. Yeah, I forgot I got my first one on Sunday, like last week. So I have to wait. I got the Moderna one, so I have to wait a little bit longer. I think 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So
it was good. And I'm hopeful, but we're still. Things are not normal. Let's just. I think everyone knows that. So But anyway, it
feels
we're moving
like,
in the right
it feels
direction.
Like we're kind of like in that final curve, like if you're running a race and you come around that last corner, although I don't like to run, so I would not be running a race.
I wouldn't know.
But I feel like we're in the home stretch.
As I've said before, I only run if someone's chasing me. I know.
Or if I was made to in school. I think that's why I hate it, because PE was not my favorite subject.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay.
Well, let's get on with these questions.
Okay, so the first one, we have a multi-part question from Fatima. And she says, what kind of newsletters do you send to your readers and how often? So let's answer these we'll answer this one and then we'll go on to the next one. Yeah. All from her.
Okay. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. So I send my newsletter to my people twice a month, on the 1st and the 15th. And because I don't release very often, it's usually slice of life things. Usually before pandemic, it was, funny stories about me embarrassing myself. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, I haven't had that much opportunity to embarrass myself. But like yesterday, I sent one, and it was tropes and book tropes that I love. I've been the last month really reading and listening to a lot of urban fantasy, which is I love that genre, and so just the recommendations there. And then I talked about some tropes and my favorite books and tropes, different tropes. And then I asked my readers to send me theirs, and we'll kind of compile a list and put it out in one of the newsletters. So that's what I do. But then I also have the New Author Discovery newsletter that sort of took about a month hiatus, but I'll send one out next week. So So my readers are getting 4 newsletters from me a month, but the ones that are the new author discovery, they're titled that. So my open rate on that is about the same as it is on my regular newsletter. My regular newsletter is higher, but it's still not bad. So that's what I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about you?
Well, when I first started out, I did just a newsletter when I had a new release. And this was like when I was, having one book a year. So I didn't send out a newsletter very often. But as I became indie and learned more about newsletter marketing, I sent out an email to everyone at one point and said, hey, I'm going to be emailing a little more often. If you'd like a new release only, click here and you'll go over here and you'll only get the new release. Or, if you don't do anything, you'll get my more frequent updates. So I try and email about once a month, and it's usually, I aim for the 15th, and I do like a little kind of update, whatever's been going on. If I have anything interesting or fun, I talk about that. If I found a new show or a new, something that I'm enjoying, I'll talk about that. And then I usually just put in some like interesting things. One thing I did last time, because mystery readers, they love puzzles and things like that. And I found this online jigsaw puzzle creator. And so I took my cover, which I own the rights to, and I uploaded it. And then I just put a link in there and it could embed in the newsletter. And so people love that. And I was like, you never know if people are going to like it, but I try and give them something that they will enjoy, either a recommendation or something fun. So they like that. And people email me back and they were replying back like 8 minutes and 12 seconds, like they were like, this is how fast I did it. So that's funny. So I just try and find little interesting things like that to send them. Yeah. And then at the end of mine, I always put currently reading, and I have like just a link to whatever I'm reading that week. And then I will do certain newsletters like Sara recommends. And this is like what I, like my top picks for whatever, like for this year or for, locked room mysteries or whatever. And then I ask my readers, like you do, what they've been reading. And so one of my most popular newsletters was Sara's Readers Recommend. And so when they replied back, I kept a list and I created, or I asked Adriel to create books to read links. And so then, they could go look at the carousel and pick, which books, so it was very interesting to see what everyone else is reading, and good for information for ads, if you're doing ads. So, right. So
that's great. Yeah. I always have in mind Albright Spotlight, where I put my newsletter swaps. I do a newsletter swap almost every newsletter, not everyone, but almost. And if I don't have a swap, I will still feature friends' books or people, books I've read or in all my newsletters. But one thing I always do, it's just kind of a permanent part of my newsletter, is I have the links to all my books and all my audiobooks at the bottom. Go through the newsletter at the bottom, and then it looks like the rest of the newsletter basically, but it's got all the links.
So I've done that for a while, where I'll say, have you missed any books? I had that at the bottom, like a footer, and I had images for all the books. You could click on it, would take you to the series page on my website. And then I started trading that out. And so I have like 2 or 3 that I rotate. And like one of them is, are you new to audiobooks? Let me help you get started. And then there's another one that's like, I have one that's like, the formats of my books. You can find my books in ebook, print, paperback, just so people know. Yeah. So kind of informational. And and then last one I did nothing, just to see. And I need to go back and look and see, if I had better click rates, because I didn't have that thing on the bottom. So I think I just kind of like to use it like informational. Hey, here's some books, or hey, did you know I have audiobooks? Things like that.
Yeah. I always sell books when I send out a newsletter. I mean, it just doesn't matter. I always sell books. So I always have those links there.
Yeah. All right. So let's go on to the next question. So this is like part 2. This is the question. You mentioned you depend on word of mouth to sell your books, but it's hard to measure its reach. How do you nudge readers to talk about your books other than writing a great book, obviously?
Well, I talked about this in the Clubhouse group that we were in. It is hard to measure word of mouth, but I do encourage, like when I have a release or something like that, I always create a post on my author page that my readers can share, and I make it as easy as I can for my readers in my reader group to share that author post. So I create a link, I get the link from the author post and I put it and I say, hey, you can share this here. And I know that a lot of them do because I get the notification that they've shared it. Yeah. Also, one thing I do when I launch is I do the giveaways, in other authors groups, and all that they have to do is like and share to enter so I have a little graphic and then I have the blurb and everything, but all they have to do is like and share. But when I do that, because, a lot of my readers read in, they're other people's readers too, they start talking about the book. And then there's like a whole conversation going on about the book that I'm not involved in. So that's a good way to, exactly. Which is a good way to do it. So it is hard, but I think as you build a following, as you build, kind of trust with your readers, and then they will, especially in romance, they want to talk about the books they love,
Yeah. And that is very different from a mystery reader. So every genre is going to be different, because I think that romance readers and like YA readers, they love to get in there and talk about those characters and talk to their friends about it online, whereas mystery readers are much more reserved. And I did not understand that when I started out, and I was trying to create buzz around my book, and my readers were like, loved it, great, thanks. And they didn't want to, they wanted to email me and tell me they liked it. They didn't want to announce it on social media, which is fine. Right. So I think it's a little bit, it made it be harder depending on what genre you're in. But you can always ask, which is hard for me to do because I don't like to ask for anything ever. But you could, I have done that, at the end of a book, instead of asking for reviews, maybe if you're a couple books into the series, because those would be your readers that really love your books, you could say, please share this with any of your, I would say, please share this with any of your friends who love mysteries. Because if they're not into mysteries, they're not going to like it, But you could ask. I think the Goodreads giveaway is a good thing. I've done those too. The paperback, you just give away 5 copies, and that helps get, it gets in people's Goodreads feed, and maybe people aren't talking about it specifically, but other people will see it. Right. So I think that's a good idea too.
Yeah. I agree with all of that. You got to know your reader, you got to know your audience. So, and we talk about that all the time on this podcast. So,
yep. All right. Part 3, the question, do you have anything special you do for your readers? So this could be a whole podcast, I think.
Yeah, it could. And you're better at this than I am even, but I did that that book in my newsletter. And so I did a chapter, I would like to say every time I sent out a newsletter, but that didn't happen, but still. And then when it was done, I had a link to my website, and I left it on my website for my readers for 2 weeks. They could read it for free there before I put it, when I put it up on Amazon and sold it. So, that's something I do. I'll just do a random giveaway in my book, in my group. Stuff like that.
Yeah. And you did the novella, right?
Yeah. That was the novella I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've done lots of different things. I've done like giveaways. I've done things where people, like in the newsletter because the more people open and click and reply, the better it is for you. So one thing I did was I had giveaways for a while that I did. The way to enter was to reply to my email. And that is a lot of work, because then, if somebody replies, then you want to reply back to them.
Correct.
And then, it's because you're creating a conversation. So that's more work on your side.
Right.
But I've done that where I'll give away books. A lot of times I'll, because this allows me to indulge my desire to buy books.
Yes.
I buy the book from Murder by the Book. I read it. I take a picture of it, post it on Instagram. And then some of those I will give away, and I'll, say, click here to be entered in the giveaway. So I've done that. I try and do something for my readers. I want them to have something exclusive if they sign up for my newsletter. And I used to think, they'll find out about things first from me. But the BookBub new release alerts kind of ruined that, because they send theirs out like the minute the book is out.
Yeah, so they do.
So I switched and I started doing exclusive previews for my newsletter list. So the last couple of books I've emailed them the first, couple of chapters. I think one book I did.
I've done that too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I did the first, I can't remember, 6-7 chapters, much more than they would get in a preview on Amazon or on a retailer. So I've done that. And I have written short stories to give things away. But for me, that's a huge amount of time and brain energy that I feel like I could have just written a book, by the time I plot it and everything. Yeah. So I don't do as many short stories. Some people pump those out, and I know people that they write a short story for every book they release. And I just can't do that. I mean, I probably could, but I'd be awfully exhausted.
I'll do the second epilogues or whatever, at the end of my book. To try to avoid duplicates on my newsletter, which, good luck, because I'm a MailChimp. I should probably switch, but it's such a hassle.
It's a pain. I know.
There's just so much time. I'm like, whatever, that might make me a bad business person, but I don't care. So
it's not, the pain point isn't that high yet, obviously.
It isn't that, but anyway, to avoid the duplicates, I will send those extras out in my newsletter to my current subscribers. That way they don't have to subscribe to the newsletter to get, to get it. So I do that for them.
Yeah. And then I kind of, last year in December, 2012 was just crazy. And I didn't, I 2012, 2020. Time means nothing now, right? So maybe I have a little dyslexia there. So 2021 is 2012. Anyway, last year I just couldn't come up with anything creative, fiction wise, to send to my list at Christmas. And I like to do something for them at Christmas. And so I created these pages from a reading journal that they could print, like printables. And I've done a printable calendar that I hired somebody off of Etsy to create a calendar. And so I've done some things like that, and they seem to, love it. So free stuff is always good. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
All right. So next question is there another subgenre you're interested in writing in? This is a fun question.
Yes. Urban fantasy. I have a whole urban fantasy story series. It would be awesome, but I write so dang slow, y'all. I cannot justify that. My romance readers would kill me if they knew that I was not writing their story to write an urban fantasy story. So maybe someday, but the clock's ticking. I don't know. Yeah.
So you're staying in your lane.
I'm staying in my lane. Yes.
Yeah.
I do love urban fantasy though.
Yeah. Well, my thing was I wanted to write historical fiction, like historical mystery. So I did that. And so I've written cozy, and I really love a historical. So I'm going to keep doing that. And I don't really have anything else that I would like that's kind of gnawing at me to write, I think it would be really fun to write a time travel book sometime, but I don't.
Oh, see, my brain can't hold that. I can't.
I don't know if I can have the skills to do that. So
it takes
readers are very particular. Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. So I probably will not do that, but maybe someday.
Maybe someday.
Yeah. All right. And last question from Fatima is, I always enjoy your Goodreads tips. Do you have any new ones?
I have a new one, y'all.
Yay.
I got it from Amy Dawes. She's amazing. Yeah. We've had her on the podcast before. Okay. So stay with me. So, when you're reading on your Kindle, you can highlight a little quote, and stuff. And like before I send my book to the editor, I go through and I read it and I highlight typos and stuff like that. And then, but when you highlight something, that actually shows up on Goodreads under the book. So like you've got the book and the blurb, and then down below it, it says, it's in the notes section. And so I went and checked, and all of my like typos were there, but they're private. People can't see them. It says they're private, so people can't see them. But if you go for the like my rock star book, and it's a Wake Up in Vegas, Mary story. If I highlighted the first paragraph or whatever and put it there and made it public, then people can see it, and then I can go in and give it, tell them why I wrote that, or who were my inspirations, or something about the setting, and it creates then they can respond to you, or they can ask questions to you. So it's a great way to get interaction and buzz for your book. There you go.
Awesome.
You're welcome.
Very cool. Okay, so I'm making it.
It's a great, it's really great. Yeah. So
cool.
if you've highlighted anything on a book, if you go to that book's page, like I said, under the blurb, it's down, it's above the reviews, but below the blurb, you'll see where it says notes. And then if you haven't made it public, so if you highlight something, you need to go there and make it public so people can see it.
Yeah. What a great thing. And then a lot of times I'll be reading a book and I'll think, oh, I would love to pull this out, and use it as a quote on social media or something. But then it's like too many steps.
Well, you can do that too, because you can, I'm not sure. Someone will probably correct me on this, but you can highlight something and then create like a meme or a GIF or something, or GIF or whatever they're called, that you can share on social media.
Yeah.
And you can do that through your Kindle too.
Yeah. I just never do it. So, but I was thinking it'd be a good way to save. And like, if you're reading through your book and you want to make sure you remember, oh, this would be good for text for an ad copy or something, you could highlight it and it would be there later in Goodreads, but you could just go find and leave it private until, that way you don't have to go back and read your book.
Share it. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. All right. The next question is from Claire. How can I grow my newsletter? All right. Well, we on episode 36, Trends in Selling Direct and Audiobooks with Damon, Courtney of Bookfunnel, he talks about this. But,
he talks about reader magnets and things like that.
Right. Yeah. Right. Reader magnets and using Bookfunnel to have your reader magnet on where you share that link with your readers. You can do giveaways from Bookfunnel and Prolific Works. They have group giveaways, or promos that you can do. Ryan Z, we talked to him. He has a whole business built around promotions for certain genres where multiple authors get together and they do something. That's a great way to do it. That's how I built mine. It was with a preview of my book, which doesn't work anymore.
Still do it.
And frankly, at the time, I can't believe it worked at the time, but it did. But you can still do it. And you can still, if you have a short story or a note, well, I don't know about a short story, but a novella, because some of these promos will require a certain word length. And so you'll have to look at that and all, all the promos, they have certain, stipulations. So, but that's a great way to do it. I know Mark Dawson has used reader magnets and run ads with those to build a newsletter. I've never done that, but I know a lot of people that do, not just Mark, but a lot of people. So do you have any other ideas?
Yeah. I mean, those are all great. And I would say you kind of got the two, like you've got your, bring people in that don't know you.
Yes.
So you've got how do you discover your book? So that would be like what you've been talking about, the giving away stuff for free.
Yeah.
Being doing swaps doing,
Yes.
sharing things.
Yes.
And then you've got like your back matter. And so that's for people that
back matter's always big. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
that's,
if people,
that's really how I've grown mine.
Yeah. And those subscribers tend to be better, because they already know you and they like you and they want
they're warm readers. Yeah.
Yeah. So just make sure you have something at the back of your book that says, hey, sign up here. And I think now you probably need to give them something. And maybe a couple of years ago, people just sign up because they were interested in when the next book was coming out. But I think now you need something to give away. And it doesn't have to be another book. It could be, like if you write cozy mysteries, it could be recipes. If you, like whatever your readers would want, whatever your type of reader wants, make it something that's irresistible to them. I changed mine for the historical series. I was giving away another book, a book one in another series, but it was a contemporary cozy. And so I changed that after. What I did was I wrote the historical short story, gave it to my list at Christmas. And then after that had gone out, then I switched that out in the back matter. And I said, and it was how Olive got started, like her very first there's a little line in the first book about, she helped with so-and-so's missing emeralds or something like that, or sapphires. And so I wrote a little short story just about that. And so if they want to know more, then they can get that, when they sign up for my list. Right. So things like that. Or if you tell a story or a short story, a scene from another character's perspective, especially the love interest, I think that's huge. Like if you have...
Yeah, we plotted out a whole thing for Sara to work on yesterday. Yeah, we just gave her a bunch of work. Yeah,
it's on my to-do list for 2025.
So one of the biggest things that has the most downloads for me is the book 2. Throughout the book, they kind of reference this incident that happened at a wedding. And I wrote the wedding scene, but it was going to be a flashback, and I don't like flashbacks. So I took it out, but I kept it. And then that's my giveaway. And people love it. They love, because they want to know what happened. They want to see what happened. So that's something, and that was a scene. I mean, like most of my giveaways are just a scene. They're either a second epilogue or they're that scene or, and then I do have the novella that I do give away, but it doesn't have to be big. It's just got to be something that grabs their attention.
Right. And if you can raise some question and not answer it, just a little hint of mystery, people, if they're into the story, they will want to know. Yeah. And that's enough to pull them into.
Yeah. And if you're smart, which I can't claim to be, but if you're smart, you could write your book with that in mind, knowing that you're going to offer this little thing. But those are the best ways, I think, to grow your email list. And
it just takes time. It
takes time. It just takes time and effort. That's it. You will get it. I'm a huge believer in trying to get some kind of email list before you release your first book. It's hard. I'm not going to say it's not hard, but that just helps you to have someone to market your book to when it first comes out. You have a specific group of people to market your book to.
Yeah. And I went through, I moved from one email server to another, and I had like all these old emails, and I looked back and I was like, why am I saving these? And I did not know these, I look back now and I was like, why did I keep these? Why didn't I delete these? Like, it's like Facebook notifications from, somebody posted on your Facebook page. So it's just cluttering everything up. So I was deleting everything. But as I went through, it was very interesting to look back, because I had originally, when I had my newsletter sign up, when I switched from a paper sign up with mailing addresses to an email, I used a form that they filled out on my website. This not what I would recommend now, but I would get a notification when somebody filled that out, and it would be like, and it had a number on it. So it was like number 1, and I would get an email number 2. And I mean, there would be like gaps of weeks when I would not have anybody sign up, or months. And so, but it was very interesting to go back and see the gradual. Right. It's just a trickle, and over time it just built up.
Right. I mean, I will be, this is my publishing anniversary month. So on April the 11th,
congratulations.
thank you. But over 4 years, I've grown my list from 1,200 when I started to over 17,000 now. So, and most of that has been organic. I don't do a lot of promos and giveaways. So, I mean, I know some people that grow their list to 17,000 in a year. Good for them. But over time, slow and steady, I've grown my list, and it's a healthy list. It's, it's interactive. They click. My click rates are just great. So, and open rates are good. So, you just have to kind of know that it could be most of the time is a kind of a slow process of just, 100 signups here and there, or if, when you have a release, it's always going to be, hopefully bigger. And, but like I said, I mean, I'm not discounting what I've done. I'm very proud of it, but I know that there are people that get these, 17,000 in a week, and, so it just depends, but you can't look at that. You just have to look at what you've done and, be good, and keep good going with that. Yeah.
Keep going, keep working at it, keep releasing books and putting it out there.
It's a race. It's a marathon, not a race.
Yes. Very true.
Yeah. Okay. So Michelle has a question. Do you have recommendations for launch strategies for debut authors and or first in series books? Sorry, y'all. Yeah, I mean, this is going to depend on your genre for sure, for sure. And if you're wide or in KU, because I'm in KU, every launch I feel like it has to matter. Like I have to try at least to make some kind of splash, because I want, I want that rank.
Want that boost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want that rank. Boost in that rank. The best launch strategies, like I was thinking about this because for beginners, because it was, like I said, 4 years ago. And when I did it, I just did what everybody said. I was like, they said to do it, so I did it. And it, it really did work. Would it have worked?
List.
I was going to say, would it have worked as well if I hadn't had that 1,200 person email list? I don't know. I don't think it would have, because it would have been really hard. But I did have swaps with people. And I think I still think that's a good option, especially for new people. If you can find some people to swap with in your genre, I think that really can make a ton of difference. I didn't have the money. So I didn't spend a lot of money when I launched my first book. I mean, I just didn't. I spent $50 on that Shifted Sheets review package thing and promo. And that was it. That was all I spent, because that's all I had. And then I started running some really low, like $5 a day AMS ads. But I would not concentrate, if I was new, I would not concentrate on ads in the beginning. Now, AMS ads, in my opinion, are too hard. If you're in romance, they're just too hard to make work. And I know there are people that do, and I'm not discounting them.
But really hard with one book.
It's hard with one book. But I would work on like relationship building with other authors. I would work on building that newsletter as, to 1,000 people as fast as you could. And just sort of taking it slow. And then if you're in KU, each launch, you maybe do a little bit more. And as we've said before, I have a launch plan on my website that is totally free. You're welcome to it. It's jamialbright.com. We'll put it in the show notes. But you can use any one of those things to launch your book. And I just think with each book, you do a little bit more, and then you get to the point where you're doing all the things. So that's in KU.
Yeah. And we have episode 26. It's a huge, long episode called Book Plans, the mega episode. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And
that's us talking again. Yeah.
Yeah. And we go into, because Jami just had a launch when we recorded that, and she talked in detail about everything she did. And then I talked about what I did, and mine are a little bit different. If I have a first in series book, I really throw everything I can at that. And it to me, like a first in series, because it's mystery, is the big launch.
Yeah.
And that's what I want people to read. And I want to get eyes on that book. But then like book 2, 3, and, on down the line, it becomes more automatic. Like, I put the book on pre-order.
Yes.
And I would recommend pre-orders, even if you do a short one. I mean,
and Sara is wide.
So I was going to say,
for wide.
If you're in KU, you may not want to, but if you're wide, I think pre-orders are great. And for one thing, it gives you the link, gives you the URL, so you can, have it ready to go to share with people for all the pages, on the different retailers.
Yeah.
And so, I do. So like for the other books down the series, I don't do as much, but for the first book or for a debut book, I would do like Jami says, I would network with other authors in the genre that you can connect with. And then in mystery, blog tours are still a thing. I don't know that I would recommend this for everyone necessarily, but if your genre has like a group of bloggers that are interested in your book, that is a good way to let people know about it. And I mean, it is a ton of work. It's a lot of work. And when I did the new historical series, I hadn't launched a new series in a while, and I did a blog tour, and I said I would, I can't remember, I would answer questions. They had all these options. Do you want to answer questions? Do you want to do a post? And how many stops do you want to have on the tour? And I said, I'll take as many as people want, because it's just more people finding out about your book.
Right.
If you're wide, you can do a NetGalley. You can list on NetGalley and get that going and get some readers that way. Kobo has a NetGalley submission that you can submit. They don't guarantee that you'll be picked.
Right. So. Right. And you can do those things if you're in KU. You just can't, you have to do them before the book comes out.
Right.
You can't do them afterwards. And that I would recommend that if you're in KU, like Booksprout or NetGalley or whatever, because when I launched my book, the first book, I did a shifted sheets. I don't know that they still have this. You can all check, but for $50, they sent my book out to their readers, the readers that, they opted in according to taste. And I gave away 300 books. Like I gave away 300 books.
Which is a lot when it's new.
It's a lot, but it didn't even bother me because I didn't have any readers. I did not have any readers, and except for those 1,200. But I got 70, something like that. Reviews, like within the first week, and that's priceless.
Yes.
And most of those readers are still my readers. Most of those 70 that reviewed are still my readers. And so that's a good way to find readers, not just reviewers. It's a good way to find readers, because if they really like you, they'll stick around.
And the other thing I forgot to say this about pre-orders is if you put your book up on pre-order, it shows up, like if you search in Amazon, like you can search coming soon. And there's certain bloggers that will do, like new books. These are the new books coming out. And if your cover is interesting and intriguing and pretty, or, whatever it is for your genre, you can get interest from it just from the cover.
Yeah.
That's how I got in, or that's how my book was picked to be in that Woman's World magazine that's in the grocery store. They have a little panel of books that are released each week. And the lady emailed me and said, do you have a high-res copy that I could use? And are you interested? I was like, sure, of course. How did you find out about me? And she said that she said, I think I was just looking through the list of the upcoming releases and I liked your cover. So, just having it out where people can see it can really help.
Right. And another thing that I've done the last few books is reached out to Bookstagrammers myself. I don't do blog tours, but I have reached out to Bookstagrammers because I really like Bookstagrammers. I think they're kind of true fans of romance, and they read everything. And but here's a tip: if you're going to reach out to a Bookstagrammer, know what they're about. Follow them.
Do some research.
Yeah, do some research. Follow them. Comment on their stuff, and then send them an email or DM and ask for their email, and then just ask them if they would be interested. They may say no. It's fine. It's not going to hurt you, but don't just cold call. Them if you don't follow them. That's not cool. So
yeah, and I would also say kind of a new way to launch a book, it would be podcast. If you're in a genre that has some podcasts for readers, you might send a copy to the host and pitch yourself, because I think that's the new blog tour is actually the podcast tour. A little bit harder to find the match that you need for the right podcast. But like if you write fiction and your book is based on or inspired by a true crime, there's like a ton of true crime podcasts that you might be able to get on. I don't know, you'd be able to get on the big ones.
Same thing there though. Listen to the podcast. Do not just y'all. Okay. About to get on the soapbox. You might want to stand back. Yeah, no, I'm going to. If you're going to reach out to a podcast to be a guest, have the decency and the respect for the people who do the podcast to listen to at least one episode so you know what the podcast is about. Yeah. It's just so, I just remember Simon Whistler talking about this when he had his podcast. And I was so new. I was like, oh, okay, that sounds pretty like a good idea. But it is a good idea. If you're going to reach out to somebody, let them know what you like about their podcast or something you've gotten from their podcast before you give the ask. It's always best practice. And if you're using a PR company, make sure they're doing that, because
oh my goodness, yes,
we've gotten so many requests from PR companies for people to come on and do their, promote their book,
but they're not for our audience.
No, not at all. So, and so that's only hurting the author, and that's not the author doing it. That's the PR person.
And the author's paying for that.
Yeah.
So,
yes. Anyway, that's just a little side.
So
pet peeve.
The other thing, and I totally agree, I get pitches for Mystery Books podcast with authors who would like to be on, and I don't interview people. I just talk about books. So anyway, back to first in series books. I think the very best thing you can do, there's so much you can do. And, all these things, they all take time and they can give your book a boost. But the very best thing to do is write the next book.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
Once even if it's not a series, once you start having multiple books out, then when people finish your book, they've got another book to go to. And it can it's really hard to, I think sometimes it's hard to limit yourself in your marketing for book one because you're so excited about it.
Right. It is. And, thankfully I did not have a lot of money to spend on book one, or I probably would have, because,
in disguise, right?
I wanted that book. I wanted that book to make me money. I wanted that book to do well, and it did. It made me money. It's always made me money, but, it's just, I would have probably spent way more than I should have. And writing the next book is always the best option, even though, I write slower. It still helps me. So it's always the best option.
Yeah.
So you want to we kind of went through some of the questions, but let's do some rapid fire questions. Do you want to do that? Okay.
Yeah.
So Michelle asks, what are the best conferences to attend and why?
Oh, okay. That'll be fun. All right. So my all-time favorite conference is NINC. That's in Florida, and it's for novelists. You have to publish 2 books, and you have to hit a certain threshold in sales before you can apply to attend.
Right.
And it's got great speakers, good.
Correct.
It's just a great place to meet people and find authors in your genre, because there's all kinds of genres there. Let's see, what other favorite conferences I have. I've gone to a lot of like mystery related conferences, and those are more when I was trad published.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do those as much now because they don't really fit with, they're not really interested in indie authors, to be perfectly honest.
Yes, I know.
So I don't do those as much now. What about you?
I would definitely recommend NINC if you're at that level. And I think that when I joined it, the threshold was like $5,000 or something.
Yeah, for income.
It's not. It's not a ton.
It's in a time period of like a year or 2 years.
I think it's a year. Yeah. I don't know. Go to the NINC website.
We'll have a link in the show notes.
Oh, goodness. We should probably research this stuff before we talk about it. That would be way too professional. But also, if you're new and a conference that's kind of not new, but a conference that's good because it's a low
threshold
to entry as far as financially, has always been the 20 books to 50K conference in Vegas. And I think that this year it's a little more expensive because we're kind of they were moving from the hotel they've been at to one that's on the Strip, but still, it's still reasonable, very reasonably priced. And you're going to get a lot of different, I think the thing I've liked about that conference is you just get a lot of different speakers and a lot of different not opinions, but because we all want to make money and we all want to, produce as much as we can. But it's just it's always just been a good place to meet people and hang out. And, when I go to conferences, I'm about the networking.
Jamie doesn't care about the schedule of what they're going to talk about.
I'll be there
highlighting my schedule.
I'll be there.
To go to this one.
Right. I'll take some notes, but I want to meet some people. And then also Romance Author Mastermind, the in-person, the virtual conference was great this past year because we really didn't have a choice on it. But the in-person conference, if you can, that's an invite kind of conference, but you can apply. And if you can get into the in-person one, that one has just always been so great. Yeah. So those are
I would say
my recommendations.
Yeah, I agree with all those. And I think that when I was first starting out, I went to several just writers' conferences that were small, local, regional.
Local, yeah.
Yeah. And so I lived in Oklahoma. Well, my first one was in Texas, and another one I went to was in Oklahoma because that was where I lived at the time. Yep. And you can enter your work usually in usually they'll have a contest where you can enter a couple of chapters and you can get feedback. Sometimes they'll have agents and editors there. And even if you're not planning on going traditional, or if you're wondering, you can get feedback, and it's usually from a published author or a professional. So those were very helpful for me.
Yeah.
So that was good.
When RWA was still, going strong, those local RWA conferences were just awesome for meeting people, getting to pitch or getting feedback on your book or whatever. So, all right. Next one. Ways to revive a tired backlist? Got any ideas?
Okay. So I just listened to a podcast with Ricardo from Readsy on, I think, the Kobo Writing Life podcast.
Yes.
And he talked about that. It's towards the end of the episode, and he had kind of like this little checklist that he was going through. He was like, try this, try this, try this. So I will link to that in the show notes. But I think sales is a good way to do that. Like if you can put one book on sale, then that can help people, can draw attention to it. Box sets, if you can box up a couple of books and then put that on sale.
Changing the covers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Changing covers. We'll always do looking at your blurbs. You might need to punch up your blurbs or change them altogether, because when you published 4 years ago, blurb styles might have changed in your genre over the 4 years. So that's one way to do it.
You mentioned something the other day of like, if you have one series and you have another series that maybe is not doing so well, if you could do some sort of crossover, some way to bring one character from one world into the other, to pull some readers into your older series, that might be good, or bring a character from the older series to the new series or something like that.
Yeah. And one way I'm going to do that is, so I have my brides books, the 4 brides books, they're set in Zacksville, Texas. So here's the deal. When I went to write the Homecoming King book with a professional football player, I thought, I've got a rock star, a country music star, a child star, and a billionaire living in, Zacksville. I can't have a football player.
So
I should have just
small town in the world.
Yeah, exactly. I should have just put the football player in Zacksville, but I didn't. I created another new town. So what I'm going to do, because my brides people will read Homecoming King. Right. Homecoming King readers aren't necessarily going back and reading the bride's books. I can just tell,
Yeah.
But I'm coming out with a second book sometime. And then, the third book, I'm going to introduce the character. Actually, I'm going to introduce the character in this book, just an introduction. But in the third book, that character will play a little bit bigger role. And then she's going to be my bride in my next bride's book so that I can get some, crossover, hopefully. And so some of the characters from the Small Town Royalty series will come over, and be in the bride's books briefly or whatever. So that's just an idea that I have, but that's a good way to revive a backlist.
If you can link them somehow.
Yes.
And create, a universe,
yes,
you've got this
universe, a series within a series. Yeah. That's always good. Yeah. All right. How do you stay organized in any particular tools or systems that you have helped you be successful? This is from Josie, and I'm going to give this to Sara.
Well, you mentioned one last week.
Pacemaker. That was really great. That's a great tool. Yeah.
Yeah. I went and looked at it. I was like, it's very cool.
Yeah. I
haven't used it yet, but it's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I'm never organized enough. There's always more that you could do. But so I've got, for writing and stuff, I use a Pomodoro app. And it's called Flat Tomato, I think. I think we've mentioned it before. I use that. As far as keeping track of things, I have Adriel, who has helped me a lot. Yeah. She's really good at being organized. And in fact, she has created a checklist that I was going to I'll put the link in the show notes, that if you want to sign up to get, it's a book release checklist where you can, she's got what she does for me. And then she's got a column where she has how far out we do it. But if you want to do or if you want to mark something off, you can mark it off. But then you can say, okay, I want to do this 2 months before instead of 6 months or whatever. Right. So I'll put a link to that, because that, just knowing that, figuring out the timelines of what I need to do and knowing when I need to do each thing helps me.
Well, can we share that in the Facebook group?
Yes. I need to create a links for it. So I'll put that in there when we get it done.
That's great. And also, when Sara does that, you guys can share your organizational links so that you can help us.
Yes.
We're not real good. Yeah. Okay. So here's a question from Kelly. I'm trying to finish my first book, but I keep getting sidetracked researching everything I should do once it's done. Readers, editors, newsletters, marketing, formatting. The list of things I don't know is so long, I get overwhelmed and go get cookies and a cup of coffee instead. I feel you.
My kind of person right there.
So for the sake of my waistline, where do you send a newbie for information? She's just kidding about the waistline, but
that's legit to me.
So this is what I've mentioned this in the group before, but David Gaughran has that class. It's a free course for new authors, kind of things they need to know up front, and we'll put a list in the show notes for that. But that's always a good thing. But my big thing is, just if you hear something interesting, write it down, but keep writing your book. Don't stop writing your book to go research this other stuff. Just make a list of things you hear that are interesting. And when you're done with the book, or your book is with the editor or whatever, you can then start looking. Because here's the deal. I waited a year to put my first book out because I wanted to get my ducks in a row. And so it may not take you a year, but if it took you a couple of months after you finish your book to get things set up, then that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing that says that you have to put that book out immediately when you finish it. So just make a list of things. But I think David's course would really help.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And the thing is, if you don't finish the book, you're never going to get to do all that stuff. And if you become so focused on that, it's really hard not to, because a lot of the podcasts, they focus on, how to promote, how to market, how to create your reader magnet and stuff. Right. So finish the book. And then once you have it done, because a lot of that stuff may change because, things that work now may not work in, a couple months or, so I would think of it as I'm not going to spend my time doing that now because that might be a waste of my time. Right. So I'll finish the book, and then David Gaughran, that's a great resource. And then the Mark Dawson SPF 101 course, if you have a little more money and you have the ability to, that's kind of like the next step, I would think. Yeah. After you do but if you do have a little bit of money, it's worth it. I've done that course. It's got tons of great information, and it is kind of a step-by-step of how you can do it. And we can put that link in the show notes. Yeah. I mean, it's an affiliate link. We want y'all to know that up front, but I've taken the course. It really helped me. So yeah. And I took the ads course. So we've both taken courses and found them beneficial. So, so that's, I think that's actually open right now. So I'll put the link in the show notes. Yeah. So that's helpful, I think. That is. All right. So Celeste says, I don't remember if you've talked about this before, but I'd love to hear about what you wish you'd known about working with beta readers, and what you wish you'd known about finding and working with editors and the types of editors. So I use beta readers. Do you? I have. In the past. I have, yeah. I really like using beta readers, but I will say this, that if you're going to use beta readers, use an odd number of beta readers. Because if like with one of the books I read, all 5 of my beta readers said, no, it was 4, because that one I only used 4, but they all 4 said, I want him to get his in the end, like the bad guy, the antagonist in the book. Yeah. And I thought I had done that, but I hadn't done it the way they wanted it. So because they all 4 said it, I fixed it. But if 2 of them say something, but the other 3, or, if you have an odd number, or the one of them says something, the other 2 says they didn't notice that, or what, they don't mention it, then I don't change it. If it's something that I feel really strongly about, I won't change it. But if more than one says something, then it's definitely something I look at, as far as, and I get those beta readers from my readers. It's usually the readers that comment the most, the readers I know that I know that love my books, but also will be honest with me. That's another thing. I would never take my beta reader's word necessarily over my editor, because while those are my readers and they love what I write, my editor is going to give me an eye for a new reader coming in. You know what I'm saying? So, no, I have not done what I've chosen not to do something my editor told me to do, and I've chosen to not do something that my beta readers tell me to do. But I think that it's just easier. I usually send it to my beta reader before I send it to my editor, just to make sure the story's right. I've also used developmental editors. I do that like when I finish the first draft, and I'll send it to them. And so tell kind of what a developmental editor is. A developmental editor is like a story editor. So they're going to just look at the story, the overall, like, does this story make sense? Do you have, here are your holes? One of my developmental editors kept saying, I don't understand him. I don't know what his motivation is. And so I had to go, I felt like I had been pretty clear. But when I went back and looked, I could see there were places I could make that deeper and better. So that's
that's really good. I've had them say, this kind of went off the rail. This went off the rails here. And so I've had to rein it back or take that scene out or whatever. So, that's it. And then my line copy editor, she really does more than just that. She does a heavy copy edit, which for me is a little bit of a developmental editor, but we have a relationship. She's been my editor since I started. And so she knows my books. She knows my voice. She knows my readers. She knows what my readers like. So that helps. That helps me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is good. That is, I have a copy editor, like you were saying, a heavy copy edit that I do. And and when I started out, I was traditionally published. So my editor would have been my developmental, I can't even say that, developmental editor. So I've used beta readers a few times. I've had a couple of books. One of my On the Run series, I just was having such a hard time with it. And I know one of my readers loves that series. And so I emailed her and I said, would you be interested in reading the draft of this? Because I'm having some issues with it. And I'd gotten some feedback. I think I'd sent it off to my editor and she gave me some feedback. And I was like, I just don't feel like that's the right thing. And so I sent it to one of my readers and she read it. And she told me what she thought, and that helped me because I knew that I thought she's my target reader. Right. And if she likes the way that her story's going, or if she doesn't, then that will help me. So that helped me sort that out. That's really the only time I've used a beta reader before a book has come out. I usually just write it, send it to the copy editor. And then when I get done, I've started using 2 proofreaders because
I use proofreader too. Yeah.
Very, very offended. A lot of my readers are very offended by a typo. And I think it was partly because mystery readers are so into the details. They really want, and small little things like that.
Pull them out of the story.
Yeah. So I do 2 different proofreads. I used to listen to it. Send it to the proofreader, get it back, and then I would listen to it. But that just takes a long time. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to pay the money to have somebody else read it, a totally different person. And then now everything comes out in audio. So then that's like a third proofread. And we always find something on the third proofread, Right. So
I use proofreader too. And I will just tell you that I have very few, since I've really been, I didn't use a proofreader with the first 2 books, but from the 3rd book on, I have very, very few, comments of, oh, this is wrong or whatever. Last one I used waste. I used the wrong waste. Love it. And nobody caught it, shout out to the typos that get past, me
17 reads. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So those are just things that we do.
Is there anything you wish you'd known about that? That was part of the question. And I
wish I had known that if they say if they have a correction or they have, sort of, hey, I'm having an issue, I don't love this. It's not personal. They don't hate the whole book. And I think I would also wish I had known that when I get it back from the editor, I may have some big things to, fix. And I didn't really know that. I kind of felt like I'd send it to the editor and they go, that's fine. And fix your typos and stuff. But there have been almost every book, there's been something I needed to go in and really hammer out and fix. But I think the biggest thing is just don't be precious with your stuff. I mean, I think sometimes we can get so precious with our work that we disregard anybody that disagrees with us or has another opinion. And there's a healthy line there. You want to stay true to you and your voice. But on the other hand, you're way too attached to what you're reading, what you've written. And it takes an outside person to look at it and go, you might look at this. And especially if you have more than one person saying that, you need to maybe have a look at it. So what about you?
I think I wish I had realized that copy editors and proofreaders, they are checking, and I feel like a lot of them feel like they must show you the correct grammatical structure for everything. So they'll send things back and they'll be like, this is not, they would not say who, the appropriate term is whom.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'm thinking, but in conversation, people, this character would not say whom.
Yes.
And so like, I have these debates, like, do I make it grammatically correct or not? And so I've had to realize that conversation and a novel is not a thesis that you're turning in that has to be grammatically correct. And if all the language is grammatically correct, then it doesn't read right. Sometimes it doesn't sound right.
And that's what's so great about Serena. She will say, this is how it should correctly be, but you're fine to continue to use it this way. I'm just going to point this out so that if somebody says something, she's really great about that. And one of the reasons I went with Serena, I sent, most editors will do like a little preview. A sample edit. And she was the only one of the 4 or 5 that I sent to that didn't try to change my voice, because I write comedy and I write small town comedy. A lot of editors wanted to change the way I said something, either because it wasn't, in conversation, it wasn't grammatically correct, but in conversation, that's conversation. People don't speak grammatically correctly all the time. And she was the only one that didn't try to do that. And so that was my sign that she was who I needed to go with.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. And doing a couple of sample edits with different people, it takes time to get those and find the people.
Yes.
It's worth it. It's way worth it.
It is worth it. And then this is the last one. What do you wish you'd known about narrating your own books and starting a podcast?
Oh, my goodness. Narrating my books. I wish that I had known that it wasn't going to be quite as hard or difficult as I thought, because I've only done the one.
Yeah.
And once I actually got into it and I got everything set up, it was fine.
Yeah. It was the setup that was the hard part.
Yeah. And it's the unknown. You don't know how to do it. And, and I don't feel like I'm not a voice actor. So there was a lot of like, can I do it? So it really wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. And I'm really glad I did it. I'm glad I don't do every book though, because I think I would be exhausted.
And as for the podcast, I wish I'd known how fun it was going to be. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of, we have to schedule things and, people, we're sort of dependent on other people's schedules, and that's kind of hard, but, so you got to be flexible, but it's so fun. I love it.
It is a lot of fun. Yeah. I was going to say, I wish I had known how to level sound.
Oh yeah, y'all.
We're sorry.
We're sorry. Yeah. All we can say is we're sorry. We're sorry, especially in the beginning. I think it's better now.
It's much
I'm
better
usually
now.
the problem, but
no, you're not. The
problem. We're sorry. That's all we can say is we're sorry.
No, I think like our technical thing has gotten better, but and I enjoy it. I love doing it. I love talking to everybody, and I always learn something. It's very cool.
Yeah. And I think that, if you're going to do a podcast, you need to edit. And I'm just grateful we have somebody that edits for us. Alexa has done a great job. Not the person, not the AI. But that way, if you edit, it just gives you a little bit more freedom when you're talking, because if you say something, you can go back and fix it.
And if you're going to interview a guest, it makes them feel better to know.
It makes them feel so much better if they know you're going to edit, because they don't feel that pressure. So and something we do that I kind of got, and I'm sure you did too, Sarah, from being on other podcasts, is we try to talk to our guests for 5 or 10 minutes before we start recording, just to make them feel comfortable, and because most of them we know, but some we don't know. And so we just want to, that helps us to feel comfortable, helps them to feel comfortable. So. Yeah.
And I think that from the beginning, we knew that this was for writers, and it was like, we knew what our goals were.
Yes.
And we're not, we have some affiliate stuff, but we're really not trying to monetize this in any way. Right. I mean, we're just doing it because we love talking to people, and we love podcasting, and,
podcasting has just meant so much. I mean, it's been our education in indie publishing for both of us. I mean, that's how we met each other, through a conference that was started because of a podcast. And so, it's just been.
Yeah, it's how I learned everything about indie publishing.
Me too.
Actually.
Me too. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Me too. So anyway, this has been a marathon session, but I hope we got your questions answered. And if you have any other questions, pop them in the group and we'll try to answer them there.
Yeah, sounds good. And we will see everybody next week.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. We hope this episode inspired you, empowered you, and made you laugh a little bit too. If you loved it, tell your friends about it. And if you feel so inclined, leave us a review. We look forward to being with you again next week.